Welcome back to Meridian Sports Show, live on 107 Meridian FM. I'm joined by professional sim racer from East Grinstead, Sebastian Job. Welcome to the show, Sebastian.
Hi, thank you very much for having me. It's a great pleasure. It's nice to be on a local show.
Definitely. So you're born in East Grinstead, living in East Grinstead, so you're all about East Grinstead pretty much.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I've been here my whole life. You couldn't get any more East Grinstead if you tried.
Fantastic. Well, it's great to have you on the show. Let's kick off at the very start. How did it all start for you, and how did you become a professional sim racer?
So I used to do karting when I was quite young, let's say 11, 12.
Okay.
And I did that for a couple of years, but karting is a super expensive sport to progress with. You need a lot of money just to do low-level karting, let alone if you want to go to national or European championships. So I started getting into gaming a bit and looked at sim racing, and I thought it looked really cool, looked really competitive and very professional, which interested me because I really like the competition. So that was, for me, driving on the sim isn't that much fun, but competing is the main thing. So I wanted competition. So I started that when I was 13, and then I did that for a few years. I got into the World Championship when I was 15.
Wow.
Which I think at the time I was the youngest person, which was a big achievement for me. I was not winning races or anything. It took a while to get my first podium even, but yeah, that went on for a few years on and off. And then in 2018, after being in it was the Fernando Alonso Racing G2 team. So it was owned by Fernando Alonso, F1 driver, along with G2 Esports. And then this core group of us, we all moved from that team into Red Bull Racing Esports. And that was early 2018. And I've been in there since.
Wow, you talked about karting. I mean, and I know a lot of Formula One drivers kind of start from there, and it's well known that Lewis Hamilton, obviously broken records left, right, and centre, but he started in karting and moved his way up. Is there something that you want to get back in? Is that something you want to get back into, like racing on a track again and kind of move through that kind of thing? Obviously, you're sim racing online and that kind of stuff, which is, a lot of Formula One drivers and racing drivers around the world use online or use these technology to actually practice for tracks, don't they? So you must know them pretty well.
Yeah. Honestly, the end goal has always been for me to get into real racing. That's why I started sim racing, and that's the reason I keep doing it, because there's just that little bit of hope. And I was very fortunate in 2018 to get a year of Formula Ford racing. So I did a competition, and it was the fastest driver in the UK gets the seat for a year, fully funded, in British Formula Ford, and I won that. And I had an awesome time, and it just made me realize, yeah, this is all I want to do.
You want to drive on a track.
In many ways, it was a bit of a bad thing, because when I drive on the sim, it's nothing in comparison. I still enjoy it, but for me, the reason I'm doing the sim racing is the competition. I don't a lot of people, they'll just go and drive and do random races, and I just don't enjoy it. I have to be preparing for it, for the competition. If there's no good drivers, I'm not really that interested.
That's fair.
So yeah, and the end goal is just to get back into the real car as soon as possible.
Excellent. And just going back a little bit, going into sim racing, you must have had, you must have, did you play sort of like, racing video games to kind of lead you into sim racing? You're obviously keen on that sort of thing anyway. So you can't have just picked up a joystick and just went sim racing straight away. Was there any games that you kind of got hooked on from an early age?
Yeah, I used to play the F1 2006 when I was about 7 or 8 on the PSP. And I remember playing on the Wii with one of those steering wheels that you could get. And I was playing the F1 games, but that was very difficult to do, because when you turn the wheel, it wouldn't react in game and for like half a second. So you're like predicting when to turn. And I was just always kind of into F1 when I was younger, watching it lots. And yeah, just playing with toy cars, that kind of stuff. So yeah, and then it was when I was 13, I finally got like a proper wheel and pedals and started getting into it seriously. But I always messed about with it when I was younger.
Yeah, definitely. I come from an age of Gran Turismo and Soccer Race Driver and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So I got
I
quite.
used to play both of those.
Did you? Yeah, Soccer Race Driver was one I used to get hooked on and get really annoyed about quite seriously. But Gran Turismo was probably one of the early video games I remember that had the music along with it and the really good graphics that went along with the top cars and that kind of stuff, which I remember really well. But
yeah. I remember playing the shuffle races on Gran Turismo 4 or 5, where everyone had a different car, but they were all very similar, and I loved those because they were all relatively slow cars, and they were easy to drive for me at the time. And it was just like everyone was so close. It was great fun. I did that non-stop.
There's something to be said for that, actually, going into we look at Formula One and other racing around the world, and are you of an opinion that actually it would be good to have all the same cars in Formula One so that you can actually really truly see who the best driver is, rather than, do you have an opinion on that at all? Well, just going off topic slightly, but actually you mentioned it there, on Gran Turismo. I used to enjoy those races when everybody was so close and you're going into corners 3 abreast, 4 abreast. I know it's a video game, but kind of relating to top class racing.
Well, coming from sim racing, everyone has the same car, and so I am naturally very biased towards that. I would love to see people in the same car in F1. I don't know if it would be a good thing if they always did it, but just to see how good like certain people are, because they've only got one reference, their teammate, and then all these excuses can come in from people like, oh, he has a better car, this, that. Whereas in sim racing, there's none of that. It's purely, you've got no excuse. If you don't work as hard as someone else to find the pace, then that's your own fault.
Totally agree.
Yeah, I'm a bit towards that side, but at the same time, I understand it's F1, and that is what F1 is really, engineering.
Totally agree. Totally agree. Going back to Red Bull Racing, they came along when you were racing for Fernando Alonso. How did you mention there was a group of you? Was it? Well, it wasn't just yourself then that moved to Red Bull Racing. It was a group of you.
Yeah. So it was. I think I could remember every single person, but there was like 7 or 8 of us, and obviously people come and go, but the general core of us until recently have actually stuck together for the majority of that time, which is quite cool. I think there was at least three or 4 of us have been there from early 2017 to now. I think that was when we joined the Fernando Alonso team, early 2017. And one in particular, Freddie, I have been with since early 2016 when I joined a team called Core Sim Racing before that, and we've been teammates for over 4 years now, and he recently just won the F1 Esports Teams World Championship.
Wow.
So it's been a successful year for the team, and so I've been with him for over 4 years now.
Wow. Was that Red Bull's first foray into kind of building an esports team, or was there already an esports set up there?
As far as I know, that was like the formation of a team. That it was in 2018, because this F1 Esports Championship, they changed it from being a drivers' championship to now getting teams involved, and so every team made an esports department, and so Red Bull Racing Esports was formed, and they also they kind of went a bit more extreme with it than all the other teams, and they went into other games and got drivers from other games, which is what I do. I do iRacing rather than the F1 game. And so we formed quite a large team, and it kind of came from taking this group of drivers from the Fernando Alonso team, which we were already doing really well as a team, winning quite a lot of stuff, and they basically all of us came, and within that there was a few F1 drivers for them to have, and a few iRacing drivers. There was some Forza drivers. There was, everyone could do anything basically. Everyone tried different games. Now a few years later, we kind of all stick to our one game. As sim racing gets more competitive, it becomes harder to switch games. But at the time, it was, yeah, and that's kind of how they came into it.
Well, I mean, Fernando Alonso's a big enough name as it is, and then Red Bull Racing come along and recruit you. It's one name to another. Obviously, 2020 was a massive year for you, not for everybody else, but obviously, being a 2017-18 JMR scholarship winner and a 2019 A-Dakar SRS champion, you became the Porsche Esports Super Cup World Champion, and also became the very, very first Autosport Esports Driver of the Year. How did it feel to take those 2 titles last year?
Yeah, that was it was the Super Cup was my aim from the get-go. That was I've made a lot of changes from 2019 where I finished 3rd, and I made sure that I had no more excuses, and if I didn't win, I had no excuses. So I made all these changes and I ended up winning it. So that was a big moment for me. It was something I'd been working towards kind of since I started sim racing back in 2013. To win that iRacing World Championship, which is very highly regarded, and then to win the Autosport Award was actually really surprising because I know that those contests, they are heavily voting based and therefore a popularity contest. I thought I didn't have as much of a following as other people, so I was really shocked when I won it. And yeah, to kind of be up alongside, because there was all these other people getting awards. It was Hamilton, Mercedes, and I was like there was an article of me right next to it, which was quite incredible to see my name up there with those people. So yeah, it was a very good year for me. I'd be very happy if 2021 was nearly as good.
Well, fingers crossed for you. Really, I mean, it's obviously ended really well with the Autosport Award. Obviously, going into this year, esports have kind of come a long way in recent years. Not just racing wise, but esports across the board. What do you think is the attraction of esports?
I think it's one of the attractions is certainly that anyone can do it. There's no, you have to be mega rich to get into it, or it's not accessible. But then also, all the cars are the same. And when I've watched the F1 Esports series, I think a lot of the people watching that's one of their reasons for finding it so exciting, because everyone is so close together. Qualifying, it's the same in the Porsche Super Cup, that everyone can be like top 20 could be separated by 2/10, and you'd never get that in the real world, really, or very rarely. Certainly not in F1. And people, at the end of the day, people want to see racing. They want to see people battling on track. And I think that's where esports takes it up a level, because they have this ability to make, the best drivers come out and showcase it, when the cars are so close together, you get these crazy battles, and you don't have like a 15-second gap from first to second, unless it's an endurance race, in which case sometimes. And I think people want to see close racing, and that's what it provides. And also, when I see the rigs people have and what I have now, it just looks cool. Like I've got a nice 4-screen setup actually.
Wow.
This nice wheel pedals and everything, and it's the feeling you can get from it is just like a real car. So it's
yeah, definitely. And it's becoming a spectator sport now as well. Some of the, obviously not last year because of what happened, but there's venues created for esports as well. And do you think it's going to go from strength to strength going forward? Because obviously last year was a tough year for a lot of sports, and actually some sports that hadn't kind of dipped into esports before actually ran some competitions online with cyclists, did like Tour de France and that kind of thing online, and kind of dabbled a little bit. But do you think it's got a really big future?
Yeah, I hope it keeps growing. A lot of it is down to people keep wanting to watch, and as long as they can keep people interested, then there's no worries with that. But as long as it keeps growing, then I don't see any reason it's going to stop. But this year especially has helped it. And once I think the pandemic starts to go away, it will be a real test, because suddenly more sporting events are going to be, people will be allowed back into football stadiums or going to Grand Prix, and therefore they might not watch esports as much. So it's a matter of whether or not those people still keep watching. But it was doing fine without. It's just whether or not you can grow even more.
Yeah, and obviously, while last year was pretty tough for a lot of people, it probably helped esports a fair bit in that, it's opened the eyes to a lot of people, and actually knowing it's there and actually watching it a few times and enjoying it, which I think is good. Do you have any tips for anybody that actually want to get into esports racing at all?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the most boring answer and the one everyone gives is to work hard, but it is true. I found a huge difference in how much I practiced this year or I should say last year compared to the year before, and that led to a big increase in results. But the main thing is to, I think, surround yourself with people better than you, because then you can learn. That's what I did from a young age, not necessarily intentionally. They just happened to be really good, and I could learn from them. And eventually, you learn all you can from them, and then you have to start teaching yourself, because you get better than them, and then it becomes a bit more tricky, because it just comes down to working hard. Once you've learned all you can from a certain group of people, you just have to work hard and make sure you get better than them, really. That's the only way that you'll find stuff. Like if I do 30 hours of driving, maybe one lap I do something slightly different, and I realize, oh, that's faster, I'm going to do that again next lap, and suddenly you found half a tenth. But if you didn't do those 30 hours of driving, you wouldn't have made that mistake that actually turned out not to be a mistake. And so past a certain point, it just does come down to hard work. But originally, it's all about surrounding yourself with people better than you, in my opinion.
No, that's a really good one. Yeah, really good one.
Paying really close attention to everything they do. You have to question everything.
No, that's a really good point. I like that. I understand there's a documentary series that's just been launched about you. Can you tell us a little bit more about it?
Yeah. So last year, throughout the year, basically, Red Bull Racing were following me, kind of on this path of doing the World Championship and trying to win it, but also we were experimenting with some other things. So I had to go on the Red Bull Junior Sim, which their F2 drivers, their F3 drivers are all training on, and we wanted to see what would an esports guy be like in that, and that kind of launched this whole year for us. And then there was physical training to go alongside it. They were filming at our house for the final 2 rounds of the season.
Wow.
Which was great, because they captured all the neighbors watching as I won the championship, which is awesome.
Fantastic.
And then we went to Loughborough University to have a look at a lot more in depth of my kind of nutrition and my body composition, what can be improved. Let's say sleep patterns as well. It was just a lot of learning, and this was all kind of tied in. And then I think it was early December, late November, after I'd won the championship, we had the livery of my championship winning car put onto a real Porsche 911 Cup car.
Wow.
And it's shown in the documentary, and it looks amazing. It was quite something for me. So yeah, it was it's a 3-part series, just kind of following me throughout the 2020 year, and I think it's turned out amazing. I'm really happy with it, and I can't wait for everyone to see it.
Yeah, I had a quick glimpse earlier on, actually, and I really enjoyed the first couple of minutes. It's something good, nice for you to look back on as well in the future, having something
exactly
like that.
Yeah, I was saying that to someone earlier. Like, if in 20 years, if I can show people this, I'm going to be quite proud of it.
Yeah,
and that's something nice to have, for sure.
Hey, listen, I've kept you long enough. It's great to have you on the show. Just finally, before we go, I just wanted to ask you what the future holds for you. Do you have any aims for this year or targets for longer than that? And my biggest question was, what's a big event for an esports sim racer? What is kind of the World Cup of esports racers?
There's There's a couple, to be honest.
Yeah.
The one that I won last year was in the iRacing world. That is the best. There's no better. It is the World Championship, but there's also the F1 Esports World Championship, which is their equivalent, but on the F1 game. So there's a few, but in terms of iRacing, that's it. So the goal for me for this year is just defend the title. I don't care how much I win by. If it's 1 point or 50, I just want to make sure I retain the title, because I think often the retaining it is harder than winning it, because everyone's hungrier to kind of take you down. And then goals for the future for me is just to try and once again get back into the real car. No matter how, it might not happen, it might, but I've got to try, and that's the aim for me. So.
Well, Sebastian, I wish you all the best of luck for this year and in the future as well. Huge thank you for joining me on the Meridian Sports Show live on 107 Meridian FM tonight. It's been great chatting to you, and you're welcome back anytime in the future. Obviously, if you defend your title or in the build-up, then feel free, come and chat to us, and we'd love to hear your stories throughout the year. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so much. I've had a great time. Thank you.
Cheers, Sebastian.